Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a bit of a chill one. We're going to watch together an episode of The Wall. And The Wall is a channel which is, you could say, a men's advocacy channel, but more it's about clowning on women. Okay? Because you know what? There's some behaviors that are sort of normalized, but really they shouldn't be. And we need to bring shaming back. Okay. And so this video is called Woman Who Destroyed Their Marriage and Now Regret It. Okay. Women hitting the wall. It's no secret that women are the major cause of divorce. So let's see this video and see what these ladies have to say for themselves.
Oh, these women with these divorce diaries. I've got something for you. And I'm seeing a growing trend with this whole theme on social media. These women talking about divorce diaries and what they're going through, and their husband just randomly left them or randomly cheated on them. And they just can't figure out why. But it takes me 2 seconds there, Brittany, to scroll down through your page, and I can paint the picture for you. Misplaced priorities, disrespect, letting yourself go physically, spiritually, emotionally. Statistically, it is usually the woman that leaves. So if a man is telling you he is not in love with you anymore, chances are that was the final straw, not the first. Men are simple. They want love, respect, peace, physical intimacy. And crocodile tears do not equate accountability. I'm going to tell you what, there, sister. I've been divorced for 8 years, and I had to take a hard look in the mirror and reflect on why my part contributed to our divorce. It wasn't the only thing, but I had to take accountability and fix that. And marriage is not autopilot. I feel like some of you women get the ring, and then you're like, oh, my work is done. And if a man is not getting intimacy or respect from you, he's going to go find it elsewhere. Doesn't make it right, but to pretend like it just came out of nowhere is pretty delusional. And I'm sorry, but maybe you should stop telling the world as to why he left and start asking yourself, why did you give him a reason to leave?
You know, I wasn't expecting somebody who's based straight off the bat, but that woman was based, starting with calling out all these ladies that think they can monetize their experience of being divorced. Like who wants to see that? Really, who wants to see you reaping what you sow and having a terrible time? Like I don't want to see that, and I feel sorry for anybody that's being suffering, but at the same time, when you did it to yourself, like what can I say? What can I say? But yeah, it's great to hear a based opinion, and bro, you just need to admit it when you're wrong. Like that chick, right? You know, it takes two to tango is a phrase that keeps me sane sometimes. There are some phrases that just keep me sane, and that's one of them. Because to do the tango, you need two people moving in synchronicity. Okay? So I hope that makes sense and I hope you ponder that.
Welcome to the wall. They say women have it worse after divorce, but the numbers tell a different story. The man loses everything and still gets back up, while they complain that things are now worse for them. Is it true?
Yep.
Or just another lie in disguise? Let's take a look.
Studies show women are happier after divorce than men. Why is this? Women are more likely to self-reflect. They're more willing to go inward and hold themselves accountable for the things
False. I will, because you know what? I have direct experience from this around this because my parents got divorced and I know exactly what it was for both people. I got an intricate view of the situation, and I'll tell you, my dad suffered for years. For years and years, he had to build himself back up. And my mom suffered, but she didn't have it nearly as bad. Okay? They were both depressed. They were both having a bad time, but my mom didn't need to rebuild her life.
that they need to change in order to get different results. They're more likely to go to therapy. They're more likely to hire a coach, get the support, get the guidance, get the tools. They will invest in their well-being. They will join support groups. They will do what it takes to feel better, to not make the same mistakes. They take responsibility for their own happiness. They'll step outside of their comfort zones, create new relationships, find hobbies and creative outlets, find fulfillment, learn how to fill their own cup and meet their own needs and not rely on a partner. Women are also more inclined to practice self-care, like healthy eating and mindfulness practices and getting exercise, which then improves their overall well-being. Women are also less likely to turn to destructive behavior and unhealthy coping mechanisms, and they're great.
Okay, what? Okay, well, this must be some kind of like one of those manifestation videos where you're like, I'm gonna speak it into reality. This must be that, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. For real.
At reframing the situation and focusing on the future. They embrace the independence and the freedom. All of those things are what adds up to creating.
Okay, that's true. That's true. They have embraced the independence and the freedom. And how's that going? Is it good? Is hookup culture fun?
A healthy, happy, fulfilling, amazing future after divorce.
She's right. If you walk away with the house, the car, half the money, the kids, child support, and alimony, of course you'd be pretty happy. She's literally got half of your new life paid for. And it gets even better when, after destroying her husband, she already has a potential replacement lined up. How could she not be happy? She'll have time for everything. After all, the money you enjoy the most is the kind you didn't have to work for.
Talking about how women fare off in
Yeah, guys, the monkey branchers are the worst ones, okay? Monkey branching is like when you have a lineup, like for your next guy, and you do it over and over, like a monkey, you know? That is the worst.
divorce, when women fare off far worse financially after divorce than men and are less likely
What?
to repartner. Yes.
Women fare worse?
Yeah.
What? I'm curious to know how she's gonna rationalize this. I'm legit curious.
Men fare off worse psychologically, but women are more likely, their standard of living goes down. They're more likely to be in poverty, seek government assistance.
Here.
Please look this up. Men are more likely to suffer alcohol, drug abuse, unalive themselves, get sick, all of those things. So psychologically, men fare off worse after divorce, but financially, women fare off worse.
Well, that's just wrong on its face.
Why is it wrong on its
It's
face?
just wrong on its face because when it comes to faring worse, men overwhelmingly pay child support and alimony.
Yes, but the woman's standard of living still goes down after divorce and the man's is less likely to. That's why I'm saying look it up.
Yeah, but that's not clear to me if that's them faring worse financially.
They're more likely for their standard of living to decrease after divorce. They're more likely to seek government assistance, more likely to be in poverty. Like child support, you mentioned it. I think only like 20-something%. Like it's not like everyone who's ordered to pay child support does. In fact, the majority don't.
Well, speaking of child support, I mean, it's one of the ways in which we still have debtors' prisons, which doesn't exist for other kinds of debts.
What do you mean?
Well, almost men exclusively. If you don't pay child support, you're likely to be thrown in jail.
God damn it! You can't make this shit up!
Women have it worse.
Yeah, this is one of the things like why honestly I probably will never get married ever. And definitely not officially like through the government. Because there is no way I'm letting the government intermediate my relationships. Because this is how it goes. Because I've seen with my eyes how it goes. And I'm not gonna be suckered into this stuff, okay? I refuse. It's not the 1950s anymore. It's not a thing to do anymore, okay?
Yet men are more likely to struggle with alcohol abuse, drugs, suicide, or serious illness. But sure, she has it worse. The man might die, but she's worse off because she has less money. Give me a break. Most men end up renting. If they're even able to get back on their feet. Because if divorce hits in their 50s or 60s, they could end up on the street, too old to work, and with almost no chance to rebuild. But no, they say women have it worse. Sometimes you really have to sit there and listen to nonsense.
Women.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to listen to their nonsense and call them out for it, okay? Guys, the reason we're in this situation is because we've not been pushing back. So, please, if you hear some nonsense, push back on it. Okay? That's the only way to stop it from happening. And thank you to all the based chicks who understand what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Here's why women regret divorce more than men. Financially speaking, women's lives get worse after the divorce, while men's get better. The standard of living for women goes down and average.
Bro, is this some kind of a propaganda line? Because this is the second person, right? Okay, let's see these stats. Let's hear these stats. And like, is it an opinion piece that is the source of this information? Because that's what it feels like, and that's what it most commonly is.
Of 27%, while the standard of living for men goes up 10%. So you can see why women may feel that their lives get worse after divorce because their standards of living go down while their ex-husband's standard of living goes up.
If you're enjoying the content so far, smash that.
Then stop divorcing your husbands. Easy. Quick maths. All right, guys, subscribe to The Wall. It's a great channel. Lots of mind-numbingly interesting compilations.
Research from the London School of Economics showed that
Okay.
women's household income went down 20% after divorce, while men's household income went up by 30%. This leaves many women unable to afford to put a roof over their head. This is not acceptable. So what can you do? Fight for everything that you're entitled to in your divorce. Don't walk away from retirement accounts or home equity. It's your money
That scares me.
too.
Look, each divorce is unique.
Bro. See, this is what it's this lady is probably some kind of like divorce lawyer or something. Going through a divorce, click the link in the bio. Bro, how did I know? Like, I swear that she's a divorce lawyer. Okay? I swear you're gonna click the link and it's gonna be like, hire us to prosecute your husband into the shadow realm. That's what it is. Because you know what? It's a huge industry and it's only getting bigger because it's more acceptable than ever to do this horrible stuff.
And while outcomes have improved, women do tend to lose out overall more financially than men, with a quarter of divorced women falling into poverty within 1 year after the divorce. What are some of the reasons for this? Well, typically around 75% of women that are in receipt or should be getting some sort of child maintenance or child support don't receive all of it. If we have children involved and the decision is that they're going to remain living with mum, then this is going to impact upon the woman's ability to work, reducing her hours. She's got to allow for childcare. A lot of times, if the woman stays in the formal matrimonial home with the children, just to afford the children a little bit of consistency following the divorce, it can prove too expensive. A lot of times women don't have the money to pay for their legal fees, so what they do is they kind of build up a legal debt which they will pay from their divorce settlement. And of course, if there are children involved, which means that mum may not be able to work full time, this is going to have an impact on the mortgage raising capacity. So admittedly, in the short term, men are definitely impacted. They are usually paying for a second place to live. They are having to pay for the child maintenance, maybe even pay for the mortgage where the wife and the children are still living, and they've also got any legal costs that they incur. But in the long term, studies would suggest that women definitely lose out financially following the divorce, simply because men have the ability to go out and earn more.
This theory always starts with the idea that after leaving the marriage, the man suddenly becomes some kind of businessman pulling in a huge salary.
Okay, I will say, just to cut some slack for the ladies, there are situations where you don't have a choice whether to get a divorce or not, where it's like your partner is abusive towards you, or they have a substance abuse problem, or a gambling addiction, and it's just not manageable, right? So in those situations, I do get it, you know? But also, you need to, every person is responsible for their choices. And it somehow feels like I'm responsible for other people's choices in now in our day and age, it somehow feels like I am the one blamed for others people's bad choices. And I just want to hammer the point home that you're the one who's responsible for your life choices. So choose wisely.
When in reality, the woman walks away with the fruits of all your hard work, and you have to start from scratch, often with debts to pay. And on top of that, you're hit with child support and, in the worst cases, alimony. That leaves you with about 65% of your income to live on, making it extremely hard to ever reach the standard of living you had before the divorce, let alone improve it. And that's not even counting the psychological impact of divorce, especially when she's the one who files, which happens around 80% of the time.
Did you know that after divorce, women's economic situations tend to worsen, whereas men's economic situations
Okay, you know what? The Guardian, bro. Don't get me started about The Guardian. The Guardian is a mainstream outlet. I believe it's from the UK, but they honestly do parrot the most politically acceptable talking points in the day and age. There's nothing controversial about The Guardian, nothing sort of. And the thing about the modern position, right? The modern mainstream position is that ideology comes first, no matter what. And you are forced to conform, even if you don't agree. And you even make shit up. And your base is gonna eat it up, and your base is not gonna question it as long as ideologically it aligns. And I don't like The Guardian. I think The Guardian posts opinion pieces. Okay. I don't I You'd be hard pressed to even convince me that they have factual data. I'll say it that way. I don't even know if the studies that are cited are actually legit. You know what I mean? Like I feel that a lot of science even in the current day and age is compromised by ideology. That's why I don't subscribe to any ideology. I'm not interested in talking about ideology. I want to talk actionable things. I don't want to talk about my beliefs and sort of like non-real kind of theoretical concepts, which is ideology. Ideology is a theoretical concept which you use as a framework to moderate your behavior and the behavior of those around you. And I think it's destructive and not doesn't lead to a productive outcome. And unfortunately, a lot of ladies are very entrenched into this kind of thinking in the modern day, and some guys as well, because if you conform, then it's safe. It's safe. When you're a sheep in the middle of the herd, it's the safest place.
And to improve. So when I was in college, I read this essay by Susan Okin from her book, Justice, Gender in the Family. And it had this concept called the power of exit that totally changed the way that I view gender dynamics in families. We have to talk about it. So Okin describes this sort of cycle of wage depression in a heterosexual marriage where typically the woman will enter the relationship with a lower paying job for whatever reason. Her and her husband will make the decision to prioritize the husband's career because it's economically rational. They'll do that. The woman will take on more work at home. And then further over time, it depresses her wage earning potential and her ability to make money, whereas her husband is gaining more experience at work and he's getting promoted and his income and earning potential is increasing over time. And as her wage gets further and further depressed, it just makes more sense to keep prioritizing the husband's career. So what does this mean in the event of a divorce? The statistics that Okin references from this book, The Divorce Revolution, show that women's economic position deteriorates significantly after divorce, mostly because they don't have this wage earning potential that's been developed over the last 10, 20 years.
Okay, well, while that may be true, I would say that your choices are your choices. And this victim mindset, I'm not buying it. It's your decision. If you wanted to have a career, you should have discussed it with your spouse and you should have made arrangements for that. And yeah. But I will say that I have real life examples of the opposite happening as well. So I don't think this is a common trend. I think it's a decision that every person has to make. And I don't buy it that women make less money because we've been hearing now for a while in the mainstream that women are more likely to go to college. Women are more highly educated. Women are finally making more money than men. And when that is said, then, it's always positive stuff about women and it's always negative stuff about men. And if you really look at it, it's very unfair, but it makes sense. It makes sense because men don't complain, men just get on with it, and men are much more resilient. Okay, we can take being the enemy. And I feel like men are being abused, and the society now has sort of swung from being maybe it was more man centered, maybe it was more male dominated. Whenever I was born 27 years ago, so in the late 90s, so I don't really know what it was like last century, but I imagine that, yeah, men did earn more money, and men did have more power in society. But now it feels like the pendulum has swung way too far. Like, we wanted to achieve a balance, whereas what we actually achieved is men being oppressed now. Because for some reason, there's always a group that has to be oppressed. For some reason, we can't just all get along, which is sad.
That theory sounds good on paper, but it doesn't line up with reality. Nowadays, most women work, and even then, they can't maintain the standard of living they get when they marry a productive man. It's not that marriage holds them back. It's that many simply don't earn enough on their own. If divorce leaves them worse off, it's not the man's fault. It's because without him, they're faced with the economic reality that was always there. They were living paycheck to paycheck. Let's keep going.
They get out of a marriage, they're often burdened with childcare and they're not made proper alimony or childcare support payments. And then marital assets are not divided with the context that the woman is going to continue to earn less because her domestic labor has depressed her wage earning potential over time.
So what she's saying is that women actually deserve special privileges based off of this sort of context, which is hypothetical, right? So not factual stuff, because you're talking about the future that hasn't happened. So you're supposed to make more favorable arrangements for women based off of hypotheticals. Okay.
So assets aren't divided in a way that gives context to the domestic labor that she's been doing for the last 10 or 20 years. And now she's in a very vulnerable position where she maybe hasn't had work experience for the last 10 years. She's taking care of the children, and her husband is now child free and has his earning potential. It's been increasing over the last 10, 15, 20 years. And he's
What? Just because you're divorced doesn't mean that it's not his child anymore. So, no, he's not child free. What kind of nonsense is that?
able to just keep going out and making lots of money and potentially not sharing that in an equitable way with the person who enabled his earning potential to increase over those years by doing free labor at home. So then Okin introduces this incredible concept, which is called the power of exit, which basically says that your power in any negotiation is directly related to your ability to walk away from the deal. So if I'm in a negotiation and someone is giving me a really shitty deal, if I can walk away from that deal, I have a lot more power. But if I know that if I walk away from the deal, I'm going to be worse off, and if they walk away from the deal, they're going to be better off, it actually depresses my power in any important negotiation because I don't have the same power of exit.
These spinsters are all.
Yeah. Okay. So that's why you have to have clear terms if you do want to get married. And this is things that you decide when you do want to get married. And you have to you have to plan long term. Can you imagine that? Actually planning long term and thinking about your future, not like next week, but in 2 decades. That's the thing, that this lady, she has not done that once probably in her life. She's not pictured herself. Like, sit down right now and think, what am I going to be like in 20 years? Where am I going to be? That's not happened, you know? The only thing is like regretting stuff, and then retrospectively demanding things. There was a article recently, right, where a woman was like saying, was it an article or was it a Reddit post or something like that? But I'm going to try and quote it as best as I can from memory. The lady was like, I was with my boyfriend, and we broke up, and now I'm like 36 or something, and he took my childbearing years from me, and now I'm sad. And I think she wanted to sue him or something like that. And doesn't that sound schizo? Because to me that sounds super schizo because you are responsible for your own life. Other people are not responsible for your life. And you need to negotiate your position. Okay? And you need to negotiate before you go through with the deal, not retrospectively.
Always looking for theories to justify why nobody wants them. First of all, if you don't want marriage, you can be in a common law relationship. Second, studies show that relationships today don't last more than 7 years, and plenty of women keep their jobs even after getting married. It's pretty rare to see women with 10 or 20 years of marriage nowadays. And when those divorces happen, men get destroyed, not just losing half of everything, but also ending up paying alimony. On top of that, she gets half of his 401k. With that alone, she's basically set for retirement. So what are you even talking about, lady?
I love when men use a stat as some
Yeah. It's just man bad propaganda basically.
sort of gotcha, when really all it's saying is that women would rather live in almost poverty levels with less access, with less opportunities than their male counterparts, than stay another single minute in a marriage that doesn't serve them with a man who doesn't do anything for them but suck the life out of them and exploit their labor. That's what that says. This isn't a gotcha. This isn't an insult. That's what that means, because in every single regard, women fare worse after divorce. They make less money. They have less access to housing. They have less access to job opportunities. They end up taking on more childcare. And they're still filing. They're still willing to live that life, take those risks, have less access to things than they did than when they were married, then spend another second in a marriage that does nothing for them with a man who doesn't appreciate them, who doesn't acknowledge them, who doesn't support them. That's what that's saying. That's what that 71% of divorce initiated by women stat is saying. Women know the risks after divorce, and they're still doing it because this marriage is no longer serving them, and this man is providing nothing to their life except sucking the life out of them and exploiting their labor.
All right, well, there you have it. If you learned anything from this episode, it is man bad. Okay, that's one thing. The second thing is you must deflect all responsibility, no matter what, onto other people. Okay, you are never responsible for anything if you're a female. And well, did I say man bad before? And yeah, that's pretty much it, I guess. And don't get married.